complete story. While James and his followers were on the run from Paul, they made a detour to visit a monumental tomb very close to Jericho. The tomb housed the remains of two brothers, and it had a special characteristic that made it visible for miles around.
The Pseudo-Clementine recognitions say the James community were out of Jericho visiting the tomb or mausoleum of two of the brothers that was considered to miraculously whiten of itself every year.
But this is very white, look at it.
Yeah, well, I know, but the point was...
Robert Eisenman has uncovered what must have been a magnificent and obvious place of veneration. A massive cemetery oriented towards a promontory of brilliant white earth.
This is spectacular. Look at these graves are undisturbed for 2,000 years. Grave after grave after grave after grave. Look at this.
Now...
And it's all leading up, you're saying, to that.
Right. This is an absolutely spectacular promontory here. Most people just thought it was a lookout or something, a natural formation of some kind. Nobody realized that there was something there.
This is incredible.
Now we're getting to the most beautiful motherlode of all. Come here, Simcha, and look back at this incredible presentation in front of you of the whole graveyard, all centered on this point here. Look at this. Here we have the remnants of the burial enclosure or mausoleum. There's your view going south. And up to the north here, you have the way to Jericho.
Jericho's right there, right?
No, it's up there about 10 kilometers. And a structure here would have been seen by what? Everybody from miles around, right?
Eisenman's students excavated this mausoleum and uncovered a male skeleton that he believes may be the remains of one of the two brothers that James and his followers were venerating while on the run from Paul. The archaeology substantiates the Clementine writings, and that means a Qumran detour saved James and his JC bunch from certain death and bought them enough time for Paul to find Christ.
This is that burial monument sepulcher that we're standing on it, that it's such a magnificent, clearly monumental place, that's where they were, and that's where they went when Paul missed them, right here.
This is mind-boggling. This is a piece of detective work that I think is incredible.
That's the best I can do.
But this remarkable archaeology points to Qumran as an early Judeo-Christian headquarters and some of the Dead Sea Scrolls as the earliest church writings ever found. But the community here was not to last. James was stoned to death in 62, an execution ordered by the high priest in Jerusalem, worried about the growing power of his movement. Eisenman argues that the death of James may have triggered the first Jewish-Roman war that led to the destruction of Qumran in 68. The JC bunch were in trouble. They'd lost their HQ at Qumran, and Jerusalem was besieged by the Romans. To make matters worse, Paul took their guidebook and cut a few rules that would change the religion forever. It was the launch of Christianity. How did Paul do it?
It was a game of nerves between
the Sea of Galilee in the ancient town of Migdal, Mary Magdalene's hometown, to talk with Professor Charlesworth about the Apostle Paul and his effects on the early Jesus movement.
I think most historians, as they read the New Testament, realize there's a tremendous tension somehow between Paul's version of what Jesus is all about and James, his brother. Paul wants to go to the Gentiles. He is going to go to the non-circumcised, whereas James and Peter are going to the circumcised. Paul is saying you don't have to be circumcised. You don't have to have a perception of Torah. Jesus has replaced Torah, whereas it looks like James is stressing morality, the same stress on purity that Jesus and his followers had.
The Torah, tradition tells us, is the set of laws passed from God down to Moses. Both Jesus and James obeyed the Torah, but Paul wanted to change a few rules. There were many disillusioned Romans in Paul's time wanting to embrace a monotheistic faith, one God. But when considering the Jewish faith, these Gentiles had a hard time paying the ticket price.
Judaism was very attractive to many people, many Romans and Greeks. Why? The high morality, the wonderful family life, and a day off. It was the Jews that say we get a day off in 7. Wow, that's neat. But to ask me to As a Roman, to be circumcised, forget it, buddy. No way.
And so Paul threw that rule out, along with eating kosher and 611 other commandments that he believed didn't apply. Believe in Jesus, he said, and that's enough. You don't have to keep the Torah.
So if you want to say it, Torah observers versus non-Torah observers. But if Paul doesn't break down the barriers that kept Judaism becoming powerful in the Gentile world, we probably would never be standing here and talking about Paul and James and Jesus.
I mean, Christianity might never have taken over the world.
I don't think it would have.
Paul took Jesus' message out of its original Jewish home.
You need a rest, Paul.
I'll think about it.
He then injected it into Gentile popular culture. And when it came time to assemble the first standard Christian Bible, the Gentiles ignored the Judeo-Christian Gospels.
Not many people today, and even not many scholars, know that the Jewish Christians, the Judeo-Christians, had Gospels, the Gospel of the Ebionites, the Gospel of the Hebrews, the Gospel of the Nazarenes, and other Gospels. These are what we call Jewish Christian Gospels. These are lost. Why are they lost? Perhaps the powerful community that became the church did not want them. They didn't put them in the New Testament, and probably they destroyed them.
As the Pauline followers of Christianity were establishing the church, they were writing the Judeo-Christians out of their Bible. They emphasized the supernatural divinity of Jesus and did not accept the Judeo-Christian belief that Jesus was a mortal man, a Messiah, but not a God. And there were pressures coming from the Jewish side as well. Even though the Judeo-Christians honored the complete Torah, including the 613 rules Paul had chucked out,